What's going on, guys? Welcome to a video. In today's video, we're gonna talk about some lures and when I like to use them for pond fishing here in central Wisconsin. Today is a very breezy, cool. We just got like 2 inches of snow that's on the grass. It's not on blacktop or nothing, and then another like ½ inch of rain. So we're still early in spring, so it's not ideal for what we're doing yet, but it's a good place to start. So let's look at what I like to fish this time of year on ponds. The first is a deeper diving crankbait. I like to fish these. I don't catch a ton of fish on that or this. This is also a deeper, more suspended style jerk bait. I like to use both of those when you can fish a little bit slower. This dives deeper. It'll get you down to about 10 feet, which most ponds in this area, that's getting you to the bottom in most areas. And you know, this will get you down 6 feet, which is plenty for when you're fishing. But when you're fishing these ponds and you get deeper down, you kind of need to slow down too, because it is so cold yet in that water that it's not always the best things to use early in the year. So I do catch fish on them early in the year, but I'm not saying it's the best thing for you to use. The other thing that I like to use is like a football head style jig, as you can see there. I like to go big enough to keep it on the bottom. Basically, I'll drag it along. You know, it'll sit like this, and then I'll have a trailer on the back, and I'll just drag it. I'm not gonna lift the rod where it comes up, you know, where it'll come up and then go back down. I'll drag it. I'll just drag it along, hoping to get that trailer just to shimmy ever so slightly, because those fish they're not moving quickly. The other thing I like to do is, this isn't the exact spinner that I use because it's actually tied on a rod that I don't have in the garage here with me, but I use spinner baits. Bigger the head, the better. You want to get them as deep as possible, and you're gonna move them pretty slow, especially this early in the springtime fishing. I like willow blades on most of mine. You can use Colorado blades. I haven't seen an advantage or a disadvantage to either of them at all through any of my fishing. So those are both really good. And as water starts to warm just a little bit, so right at the end of this period heading into, you know, spring, not late spring yet, but spring, where the bass still aren't even close to spawning, I'll fish a chatterbait. Now this one's got a huge head on it. That's a huge head on this one, and a huge shank hook as well. But I'll slowly pull this along where it's just barely vibrating back and forth, you know, just enough is all I do. Almost fish it like a jig is what I'll do with the chatterbait early in the year. Now, for soft plastics that I like to use, let me bring my box up here. I have 2 of these boxes, but this is like my main one for fishing in the spring. I'll use a craw style trailer. Now this is a little bit big, but I will throw something like this on a Texas rig early in the year too. Slow, I mean, as slow as you can move a bait, that's how you're fishing it basically. Early in the spring, I'll throw a trick worm. I have these in a different thing. I don't really throw the power worms or anything like that. This early in the year. So we'll move on and let's get into mid-spring. So middle spring or spring itself, because we're still, technically we're in spring, but it doesn't feel like spring. So when it starts to feel like spring, again, the suspended jerkbait I love, because in Wisconsin here, it's still gonna be cold. It's not gonna be like those super nice days every day. And you don't know what the weather's gonna be from 2 hours ago to now. Spring is very different than summer is. And even early winter or late winter, like early spring, the middle of spring is different because you can literally have a day that starts at 70 and it's 40 degrees by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I like spinnerbaits all spring. Like that's a go-to all spring for me. Late spring especially, that'll kill on any pond. Any pond in Wisconsin, that'll kill on. And right here, this bait right here, that bait will kill it for you. It killed it for me. I fished in a pond tournament, I don't know, it was probably 2 years ago now, or 3 years ago, maybe even now. That lure caught me so many fish. Like, you don't even understand how many fish that caught me. And then, like, I'll change up my spinnerbaits too, you know? Like, I'll have this guy here. He's got 4 blades on it. Not a super heavy head, but still, it's got 4 blades on it. It's going to give you a different presentation than the 2 blades, you know? Like I said, I'm a willow leaf person. That's what I fish. I fish willow blades all the time. Like, that's my go-to. That's what I fish. Square bill. Square bill is another one. Throw it kind of... I like to throw all my lures across the pond and bring it into the shallows. But in the middle of spring or even into summer, you got to stay so far away from the bank with those fish on the shore that you might have to throw it. If you want to be right on shore, like right next to where the fish could be, you're going to have to throw it parallel with the shore. So you might be fishing in 1.5 feet of water the entire way in, and you got to be okay with that. One of the main fish catching lures, I don't even know if I have any here with me. I bought a couple of newer ones, but it's the Berkley Max scent. This is a new bag. Berkley Max scent, the ribbon tail. The ribbon tail. This gets detached and it swims in the water. That's a fish catching magnet here in Wisconsin on these ponds. I don't always fish with the Max scent though. I think I got a bait in here. Thought I did anyways. Here they are. I'll fish the normal power bait, the old power bait. This is actually this is the exact lure, not the exact size, but the exact lure that I caught my first bass on. The exact bait was this color right here. I don't even know what it's called. Red shad, that's what it's called. In the 7-inch version. This is the 10-inch version. I fished the 10-inch version when I Texas rig because in the summer I don't want to catch these dinky little bass or even the chance at catching bluegill, because you do catch bluegill when you Texas rig in Wisconsin and you throw in the shallows. So I go to the 10-inch. The 10-inch, you're not going to catch a bluegill. Are they going to bite this? Yeah, they'll bite this, but it ain't going to rip off. It ain't going to rip off. And you're not going to catch the fish. You can keep casting until you catch the largemouth that you're after. And I'm not saying you're going to catch a big largemouth with these. You'll catch 14 inchers all the way up to 20 inchers. you're not gonna catch, in Wisconsin, you don't catch many that are above that 20 to 21 inch range. You won't. But you gotta understand that to catch those fish, you gotta do some special things. A new lure that I got this year that I will be trying on the ponds as well is the Berkley Fritz side. I think with this smaller profile, this is going to be a perfect lure in the spring. I've never used a bait quite like this before on the ponds, and that's why it's not like a main feature in this video. But I'm a big Strike King person. That's what I fish, is mainly Strike King, not Berkley. But you gotta understand that sometimes when you're fishing on a bank, that you need to change it up a lot. I might end up throwing this hair jig. I might. I'm not saying that I will, but I got this hair jig for fishing lakes in my boat, which we're in right now. I might throw a downsized version of the big version of a chatterbait, depending on temperature and how deep I want it to go. You know, a coffee tube, that's a perfect cold weather application for smallmouth, but it can also be a warm weather presentation for largemouth, and it can be used as a cold water presentation for largemouth as well. I don't use the coffee tubes unless it's warm. I like using it warm as a different way of like throwing something into shallow areas to get the bass to chase. So I have all these lures, and I could go fishing tomorrow and I could catch nothing, or I could go and I could throw this tomorrow. You know, I could throw this. It's red-eyed shad color, and you could catch a bunch tomorrow when it's supposed to be 48 and windy, kind of similar to today. It's a little cooler today, and then the next day it could be 60 and I could go throw this and catch the same amount of fish. That's Wisconsin, but you got to understand that there's always the right time for applications, even if you don't know what the application is. Crank deep. I always go to a pond with 2 to 3 rods. Crank it deep, drag it slow, and grind it. Just let it thump ever so slowly on the bottom. Those are the 3 tactics that I use in the spring. And if it's not a jig, it could be a Texas rig, but it's got to go so slow along the bottom. You got to make sure it's slow. Crank it deep. I mean, you can throw something that's going to crank deeper than what the pond is, and it can break up all those old weeds. When it busts that up, those bass will see that. They may not be active on it, but they're going to see that being busted up, and they're going to come over slowly and check out what's going on. That's why you also got to throw multiple casts to the same spot. You can't be fan casting all the time like you do when you're in a boat in the middle of summer. In the middle of summer, you're going to get reaction strikes. In the early fall, or in the early spring, you got to dive it and you got to crank it in the same spot. You got to drag it through the same spot, because those fish are going to look at it 2, 3, or 4 times. They're not hungry at this point of the year yet. You know, you're coming out of winter, but you're to a point where you're still not getting those fish quite as hungry as what they need to be. So you got to entice them into biting a little bit. Now you hit the mid and late spring periods, they're getting hungry. They're getting ready to spawn. That water temp is rising, and you got to get that moving bait. You can move this pretty quick once you get to late spring. Late spring, you can move that fast. You can crank a lipless. You can crank a lipless in very fast. You can go away from a suspending jerk bait where it can just hang in their face, and you can get a rising one because you can rip that and pull it through fast. You know, all are the same. Right here, that flat bill is meant to deflect off of stuff. You crank that hard into whatever you want. Now, I've had issues where I've hit rocks and I've busted bills. You can reach out to the companies, and normally they're really good about it. But you will catch fish using spinnerbait. Lipless is like my go-to in the spring, lipless. And I don't want to say a jig, because a jig is not my go-to. Anything slow that you can crawl, a big worm, you know, for instance. Even these Ned rigs, you can pull a Ned rig along. You can go small in the spring and you'll be just fine. Like, you're not gonna have an issue. So that's what I use in spring on ponds in Wisconsin. It's a little different on lakes, but in Wisconsin you can't really bass fish in spring all that much. I mean, late spring you can, but bass fishing on most small lakes in Wisconsin is closed until normally the first weekend in May. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope this helped you out if you are fishing in Wisconsin on ponds early in the year. Thanks, guys. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you'd enjoy this video. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.